Hey, what's up, YouTube? This is Youthman. Last weekend, I had a chance to visit the Florida Audio Expo, and during the expo, I had an incredible encounter with some really high-end speaker cables. And so in this video, we're going to talk about our high-end, ultra-expensive speaker cables. Do they really make a difference? But before we get into the video, if you're into home theater audio and video, hit that subscribe button. And don't forget to hit that bell notification so that you'll be notified when the next video drops. Last weekend, a friend of mine and I went over to Tampa, Florida to visit the Florida Audio Expo. Now, the expo was their first annual event, and so I was pretty excited to check it out as a free event. And so he and I went over there to see what it was about and got a chance to hear some really, really sick, high-end, like super expensive systems. Now we're talking a couple $100,000 systems just in a 2-channel setup. And so on the very first floor, of course, they've got some of their higher end, more expensive speakers in the bigger, large rooms. And we entered this one room, and in the room were these red, brilliant, very almost sparkly kind of speakers. I don't remember the brand, but they had a V as their logo. And so if you know what brand that is, post a link to it down in the comments below. I'd love to find out the brand and kind of check it out. But I do remember seeing that they were $80,000 for this pair of speakers. But one thing that kind of intrigued me during our time just walking around and checking out and listening is in the video, you'll see that I walked around to the back of the speaker because there's this massive snake of speaker cables, and they're all, of course, elevated off the floor because you can't have speaker cables laying on the floor now. And so they're huge, massive speaker cables, and I was curious to find out what brand they were because I knew they're expensive. I just didn't know how expensive. And so as I zoomed in on it, I was able to pause the video, kind of look real close. The company that made the speaker cables and interconnects is a company by the name of Masterbuilt Audio. And so tonight I went on their website because I was just curious, how much do they have just sitting in cables alone? I mean, if the speakers are $80,000, how much do the cables run? And so I went over to Masterbuilt Audio, and I began looking. They have several different series of cables. And so as I scrolled through, they've got the performance cable, they've got the reference line, the signature line, and right down at the bottom is the series that I was looking at and listening to. And so I click on the Ultra line and began scrolling down, and I noticed at the very bottom you can see the same exact speaker cables that I was looking at. You can see right here. Check this out. For a bi-wire, okay, so that's where you take a set of speaker cables to the top binding post and a set of speaker cables to the bottom binding post. And then you run that to your amplifiers and such. So one single 2.5 meter speaker cable, $35,000. Are you kidding me? I mean, serious? $35,000 for one speaker cable. You got two speakers. They had $70,000 in speaker cables. But apparently maybe these are, I don't know if they were active speakers, because at the very bottom of it, they also had, you got it, a power cord. At least it looked like a power cord. So let's see how much their power cords are. Up at the very top, the power cord, one power cord, $17,000. So you're talking $34,000 in power cord for two of them. Now that doesn't count the amplifiers. There were two massive monoblock amplifiers there. They probably had DACs and all this other stuff. So we're talking $300,000 system or more just for a 2-channel setup. And so I just began to think, and I began to ask the question, how much do speaker cables matter? Now, of course, I would never spend even anywhere close to $10,000, $5,000, even $1,000 on a pair of speaker cables or interconnects, because I'm of the opinion that a lot of that stuff, and probably the vast majority of that stuff, number one is snake oil. And snake oil is just a way of saying it's bullcrap, okay? It's a scam. And I believe that these companies prey on guys that just have tons and tons of money, and they want the absolute, quote, best that money can buy. They don't care how much it costs. I remember a long time ago when I worked at Circuit City, back in the day when they were open. At Circuit City, we went to a Monster cable training. A Monster cable back then, we thought it was expensive. It was like, $50 cables, $100 cables. And so we went to a training from Monster Cable. And the representative was telling us how that we could upsell from the cheap cables, the $5 cables, to the $30 Monster cables and the interconnects and such. And so at the end of he was showing us why people should buy Monster cable and why there's value in them and how you can try to upsell people to it. But at the end of the conference, or at the end of the training, he pulls out this pretty hefty speaker cable. And I forget how much they were. Maybe they were $700 for a pair. And that's crazy too. So he pulls them out and he says, guys, these are our top premier, premium, ultra, whatever speaker cables. He says we sell them for, say, $700 a pair. And it's 3 feet. 3-foot cable over here, 3-foot cable over there. That's $700. And he asked us this question. He said, do you believe that our speaker cables are worth $700 or $750? And of course, most of us were like, there's no way. And he said, you're absolutely right. And he said, why then do you think that we make a speaker cable? If it's not worth it, why then do you think we make a speaker cable that costs $700? And his answer was pretty interesting. He said, the reason why we make a $700 speaker cable is because we've got people that are willing to pay $700 for speaker cables. And I believe that that's the same thing true in pretty much any hobby. You're always going to have the elite. You're always going to have those that want the absolute best. And part of that maybe is just status, to be able to say I own this brand. But Youth Man doesn't have $30,000 to buy speaker cables. And so what do? I go to Monoprice. Now, I just want to throw this out there. I'm not sponsored by Monoprice. They haven't sent me anything free. They haven't endorsed this, sponsored it. They don't even know who Youth Man is. I just happen to like Monoprice. And so I'm going to show you the cables that I tend to buy. Actually, I got some here. As you can see behind me, I've got some clip speakers back here that we're running as surrounds. And so I'm working on some new videos for you guys up front. I've got the Clips RF 8060 FA. I've got 2 of the R115 SW subwoofers. I've got the matching center channel, the RF 6000s F back here as surround backs. And then up high, we've got the Dolby Atmos speakers, and then I've still got to mount the side surrounds. And so we're getting ready to do that this weekend and hopefully have a video up for you beginning in next week on some of this. But anyway, so I just want to kind of show you one way that you can buy what I believe is quality speaker cables and not spend a fortune. Not even a half fortune. It's pretty crazy. The first time I heard about Monoprice was in either the Clips forum or maybe the AVS forum. Some guys were like, where can I buy some quality cables? And they said Monoprice. And I'm like, man, I never heard of Monoprice. Monoprice has just got some crazy, inexpensive cables that I think that they're really, really good quality. And I had went on Amazon when I was looking to get some more speaker cables. And really, honestly, I considered getting some of them, I think, Media Bridge and even the Amazon Basics, because they've got great reviews too. But for some reason, I just keep coming back to this particular, especially their speaker cables. I just like this model. I like this brand. Let's pull this out here. So basically, I bought another 100-foot spool. It's CL2 rated. And it's just quality stuff, guys. I'm telling you. See if I can pull piece out without, well, heck with it. Let's go ahead and undo it. So what I like about this is for about, I think I pay like $30 for this. $30, and I typically get, when I'm buying speaker cables, I like to buy 14 gauge speaker wire. 12 gauge, some guys buy 12 gauge just because it's thicker and they figure, you know, it sounds better. It doesn't. Typically, you want to have thicker gauge wire when you're making really long runs. And if you look at some calculators online, they'll tell you, like, if you're running 30-foot speaker, you know, runs, or I think it's like 30 or 40 feet, then yeah, definitely you may want to consider buying some thicker gauge wire because you begin to lose some of that signal over long distances. But in my case, I'm running from, you know, I may be running 8 feet from my receiver to my front speakers. I don't need super thick cables, but I just like the fact that these are thick, they're quality. And so I buy 14 gauge. You know, it's what they call CL2 rated. And basically what that means is that this is rated to be able to go through your walls. So if you need to run speakers in your attic, then that's what they're made for. It's just really quality stuff. And so I like them. Now, one thing that's interesting is, like I said, this is a 100-foot spool for like $30. Okay, we were just looking at speaker cables that were a couple of meters for thousands, 30,000. That's just, I don't get that. Your ears cannot physically, even if it was drastically different. You know, amazing clarity, amazing detail. It's kind of interesting because I was reading through some of their vernacular on their website about their speaker cables. And he says the benefit of this technology becomes evident with the first listening session. You immediately hear low-level detail that you didn't know that you were missing, previously only heard in live performances. At the same time, even during the most dynamic music, their website is not mobile and tablet friendly, so I'm having to scroll back and forth. So it says, at the time, even during the most dynamic music passages, you hear the fine detail of authentic timbres, harmonies, richness, and a physical palpability that you've not experienced except again at live performances. And then they go on, you know, and tell you some other stuff. Honestly, what it sounds like they're describing is what I hear from clips. I hear detail, I hear clarity, I hear like it's in a live performance. And that's why probably for the past, 15 years, I've owned clips. I love other speakers. I like SVS. I like B&W. There's some great speakers out there. I heard some kicking speakers, some bookshelf speakers at that audio convention at the Florida Audio Expo. And man, they were phenomenal, but they were like $15,000 a pair. Okay? There are a lot of great companies out there that you can get some really, really great sound and not have to spend an absolute fortune. So basically I needed to buy some of this because the rear speakers back here, we're going to be using those, put the Atmos speakers, we're going to try them up on as height speakers. But then I also want to try them on what, you know, some people like Gene De La Sala. I saw him at the convention. I keep calling it a convention, it's Expo. He was there. And so Gene likes to call them bouncy speakers or bouncy house speakers because basically with the Atmos modules, you're going to put those on top of your speakers. They're going to fire up to the ceiling and the sound is going to be reflected off your ceiling down to your listening position. And so I'm just curious for myself, how do they sound? Are they worth doing that? You know, definitely you're going to want to get in-ceiling speakers, but that's another video. But anyway, so we're talking about cables. And so I've got this, and so I just want to share with you guys, you don't have to spend a ton of money to get quality speaker cables. And you know, it's just, that's just crazy. I just, my mind is blown at how much those speaker cables cost. That's just insane. And so, anyway, guys, I'm just that's my little rant on premium speaker cables. Man, give me your thoughts. What kind of speaker cables do you use in your setup? What brand? What thick? What gauge do you prefer and why? Love to get some discussion going on down in the comments. So if you're looking to save some money on speaker cables, I'll post a link to these Monoprice cables as well as some other ones that you can kind of take a look at and see if they meet your needs. If they do, I'm sure it'll save you a ton of money instead of going out and buying snake oil cables. And so guys, I'm just going to wrap up the video. That's a long enough rant for you. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, smash that like button. If you're new to the channel, be sure to subscribe because I produce weekly content on home theater, audio, and video. And as always, you guys be blessed, and we'll catch you in the next video.